Again, thank you very much. Welcome to everyone. You might hear some other voices every now and again. That will probably be Mark trying to keep me on track with technology, and Tom, who is my co-host on this as well. So basically, the idea for today was to kind of give you the chance to remove the politics and understand without any spin what everything means from this week's, last week's Rachel Reeves budget in terms of business rates. So that's really our goal here. So hopefully this will be very helpful for you guys. So bear with me a sec. We're just going to click slides. Okay, so welcome from myself, Shaylesh Patel, founder and director of ASTOP. We put a stop to wasted space. We'll put charities into empty commercial buildings on a temporary basis. So it's a good, nice one-stop temporary solution while landlords, developers, architects, or occupiers with excess space are figuring out what to do with their buildings. My co-host is Tom. We like to call him Technical Tom or Mr. Bond. He is here. It is my job to make sure he doesn't go too deep into technical detail. So I will cut him off every now and again, but I'll apologize for that up front.
Sorry in
Tom, do you want to
advance.
add anything else at this point?
Yeah, I think by nature of what's happened in the budget, it is quite technical, so I might be really early in my nickname. What I'll say is if we don't touch on anything, or if I do start dragging on, but part of what I was dragging on interests you, my email's there. Please drop me an email. I'm happy to explain in more depth at all. I don't think we can cover all of the intricacies in 45 minutes, so we'll do our best though.
Yeah, no problem. And please do contact Tom. He gets very excited about technical stuff, so he would really love to hear from you. And we're going to hear about Tom's pub as well later on, so you get to see that whole glory. Mark, South African accent. Mark, can you just quickly say something?
Hi everyone. Yeah, just to make sure everything running smoothly. Again, like Shailesh mentioned, if you have any questions at any point, just pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Got a section dedicated to that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's get to it. So what did we do? Why did we decide to do this webinar? So basically, we thought there's three things that we want to do here. Um, and the overall goal is to demystify, remove the kind of magic tricks and all the smoke and mirrors and everything that you've seen, whatever phrases you'd like to hear. We are trying to make clear what the budget actually means for you. So there's three components to this. What the budget did not tell you. So we want to spell that out so people kind of think, oh, hold on, but I thought retailers were going to get a lower multiplier and so on and so on, and what that actually means, because it still means a higher bill for a lot of retailers. We're also going to explain to you how that impacts your business rates directly. And again, we will touch on averages, but we know that a lot of people are not interested in averages. They want to know what it means for them. So we're going to go into a few examples and rattle through those. And also what your best options are and why. So we will try and guide you so that you don't have too much of a painful few months with bits of paper flying around and you're not quite understanding what's going on because it is pretty messy. Okay, so let's crack on. Our usual disclaimer, please don't shoot the messenger. You may or may not like what we're about to say in the sense that how it hurts you or how it benefits you. We've got all sorts of attendees today. So we've got occupiers, we've got an entity that looks after arches, we've got landlords, we've got developers, we've got architects. So we're going to try and keep this as broad as we can, but at the same time, we're going to give you some real examples. So whether you're a landlord for a retailer who you think is going to struggle, then this is going to be of interest to you as well on behalf of your tenant. So what the budget didn't tell you about business rates. So there's a few components here. Transitional relief, in summary, is masking a lot of what's going to happen. So we're going to cover this in a bit more depth. But basically, transitional relief makes it feel that the pain isn't that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. Very political spin. But over the next 3 years, it's going to get bigger. So we're going to try and take you on a journey of not just 1 year, but the next 2 years after that as well to help you get your head around it. Retail, hospitality, leisure are normally short-coded to RHL, and small businesses are, despite what's being said, they're going to feel the hit hardest. Maybe not in terms of total pounds of rates raised, but at a business by business level, they'll feel it more than some of the bigger players. That's kind of our take on it. And then finally, empty spaces are more likely because there are going to probably be more business failures. And therefore, things are going to go back to the landlord. Retailers may decide to just close up shop and just wait for the lease to end. So that is a likely unexpected outcome from the budget. So we will touch upon empty spaces as well. But our primary focus is going to be occupied spaces. So just to help you get your head around what is important and what's potentially not, there's 5 key factors that will help you, well, help you figure out, and it's the basis of business rates. So all of these slides have been put together with the help of Technical Tom. So Technical Tom, feel free to jump in at any moment if you think I'm leaving anything out. But this is the overview, the rateable value, the multiplier, rates reducing reliefs. There are a few. That is a key component. And now a new one is if your space is occupied or not occupied, that is now actually a kind of official difference in the multiplier. So these ingredients mix together to create your rates bill. And then there is the transitional relief, which has been around before. It's come back again. And Tom will cover off that in a bit more depth because, to be honest with you, I don't understand it. So that's definitely Tom's turf. Okay, so those are all the 5 key components that give you your rates bill. We're going to take you on a journey through each of those and how they've changed. So, Tom, can you give us a headline on what's happened to rateable value and what you think that means?
So they've gone up loads. Um, so yeah, so effectively the way the rateable values work is it's meant to be based on the rental value of the property based on a point in time. So 2023, the idea was that it was based on COVID rents. So the idea was it was a deflated market and everything was a lot cheaper. Subsequently, the market has bounced back and rents have increased. So they've shot back up again. So on average, I think across England and Wales, I think we've shorthanded a little bit there, but I think it's 19.2% for all properties. That's obviously, of course, an average. So some industries have been far harder hit than others. So, for example, I think pubs in particular have risen by 30%. So there's a lot of news stories that I'm sure you guys might have seen in the headlines just saying how my pub has dropped 5x in value, and that's a real thing. And they were struggling in the 2023 rating list with the 2023 rateable values, and I'm sure they're going to struggle more now.
Cool, brilliant. Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to Tom's Pub in one of the examples, I think, just to really bring this to life. Okay, the multiplier. So this is the kind of magic percentage that takes you from rateable value times the multiplier would have created your, this is the rate per annum that you need to pay baseline calculation. So although rateable values have gone up by 19.2%, what's happened to the multipliers, Tom?
So the multipliers, what they have said, the government is they've said to where rates values have shot up, what they can do is they can lower the multipliers. So last year, for example, the small business multiplier was 0.499. So roughly half your rateable value was your charge. Now the small multiplier is 0.432. So on paper, it's quite a big reduction. And they've now also made it far more complicated. So previously we had 2 multipliers. We had the small business, so we had the standard. Now we have the small business, the small retail business, we have the standard, we have the standard business, and we have this new big high value one, which is meant to be capturing the Amazons and the large online giants and making them pay more. It then gets more complicated, but I feel I might be getting into technical Tom territory where they've introduced a transitional supplement. So well, if a property isn't in receipt of transitional relief, they're also paying more. So in essence, we have almost 10 multipliers in essence could be applied.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks for stopping at that point, Tom. We were about on borders of blowing our head.
Yes.
Okay, so in essence, multiplier is based on rateable value, whether you're retail, hospitality, leisure or not, occupied or not, and a few other factors just to throw it in just for a bit of fun. Okay, the rates reducing release, I'll cover this one off. So basically, look, Tom will cover one, I'll cover the other one. I'll cover the other one very quickly. Now, this is the thing that was not really mentioned in the budget at all, and it is the elephant in the room. So retail, hospitality, leisure, they used to get 100% off their rates bill when COVID hit, and then gradually that's been dropping off, and COVID is obviously further back in time now than it ever has been. So the idea was that they wanted to kind of wean people off this perk that they had off the back of COVID. Other reasons, whether it's energy crisis or whatever, they've kind of had to slow that down. But this year, this is the end of retail, hospitality, leisure relief. So it is 40% for this current year, but it doesn't get mentioned in the budget, but that is gone. And that is why the mist in the room when it comes to the budget is that, hold on, if the multiplier has gone down and the rateable value has gone up, okay, those two kind of maybe average out, maybe I benefit, maybe I lose a bit. But the big sting is actually in the fact that the retail, hospitality, leisure guys are going to lose this completely. So the examples will kind of explain that in a bit more depth. So that's the thing where everyone's kind of probably getting more upset. Again, coming back to Tom's pop. Tom, do you want to tell us more about the freezing of the small business rates relief, the first item on the bullet point?
Of course, yeah. So, in essence, small business rates relief exists to help independent businesses with usually one property. Historically, when it was first introduced, it was you had to have a rateable value below 12,000. Then in 2017, there was a revaluation. Rateable values were pushed up, and in tandem with that, they increased the thresholds for small business rates relief. So any property with a rateable value below 15,000 qualified for the relief. What's subsequently happened since that date in 2017 is rateable values has only risen. They rose by around 7.4% in 2023, and they've risen by the 19.2% that we've mentioned now in 2026. But the thresholds have not risen in tandem with them. So what's happened is gradually more businesses are being phased out, not by moving property, not by expanding property, just their property is getting more and more expensive. And where the threshold isn't increasing in line with it, they are now having to pay rates for the first time. So we did a quick look at the VOA data, and it looks like around 92,000 properties that were previously under that threshold are now over that threshold and will need to pay rates for the first time.
So we'll come on to an example of that as well, but it is a bit of a sting because you'd think smaller businesses, all the headlines are always like, oh, we're going to get support, we're going to get support, but actually there's a whole bunch of them that are going to get a rate bill for the first time. Okay, so item number 5, which was sorry, item number 4 of the 5, occupancy. So this is kind of becoming more of a formal factor when it comes to the multiplier and how much rates you pay. So in essence, if you are retail, hospitality, leisure, although they've got rid of that 40% relief, there is a reduction, a lower multiplier for those guys. But you have to be, it can't just be a shop, it's got to be a shop in occupation. It can't just be a pub, it's got to be a pub that's open. And that's important for a landlord. So if they get a pub or a shop or a cafe coming back to them because the operator has finished for whatever reason, then not just is the bill going to move to them, but it's actually going to go up. And we'll give you an example of that as well. So this is something that's kind of being cemented as a bit of a change. So that's the penalty multiplier that we refer to there. And sadly, with the passing of time and costs and everything that's changing and shopping habits changing towards online, there is the continued and ongoing expectation that commercial voids, particularly now that these underlying fixed costs are going up, there'll be more voids than there have been before. Okay, so that's number 4. And finally, transitional relief. This is the technical, Tom, mind-blowing one. It masks and defers the full impact. So we're going to give you a proper example of this, and hopefully when you see it on the screen, it will kind of make sense as to you need to prepare. So basically, okay, you might get a bit of an increase in the bill in year 1, and you will, but you need to be prepared for the increases coming in year 2 and year 3, which you will know upfront as a result of this slideshow as well. Okay. So what will your business rate bill actually be? So let's go through some real life scenarios here. And we've chosen these numbers and this type of occupations. We put occupied retail hospitality leisure unit with a £40,000 RV as a fairly typical number. It's not necessarily average, but there's a lot of organizations who fall in here. And the landlords will also be the landlords of buildings that fall into here. So it kind of made sense for us to choose this as an illustrative example. So if in the current tax year, the rateable value is £40,000 and it's retail hospitality leisure occupied, then your rates bill will probably be just under 50% of that £40,000 mark. So £20,000. That's before you're also being given the retail hospitality leisure relief. So the scenarios are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what's going to change as you go from one year to the next? There's going to be a potentially, if you're lucky, and this is going to be very rare, but we chose this to be an illustrative example. If your rateable value drops from 40,000 to 30,500, so it reduces hugely, hence reflected by the 24% in red here, that's your rateable value change. Weirdly enough, the way things work, because you're losing that 40% relief, you're actually going to get no saving and no increase on your rates bill. It's very bizarre. So although your rateable value has gone down by a quarter, you're not actually going to benefit in any way. Second scenario is if the rateable value stays the same, and again, remembering that on average, they're going up by 19%. So this is, again, going to be relatively rare. If it stays the same at 40,000, your rateable value change is zero. Your rates bill in year one, as in the year 26-27, which is going to start in just over 4 months' time, is going to go up by 15%. Scenario three, and this is where it kind of gets weird again, even if you got a small decrease of, say, £5,000, which is 12.5% on the rateable value, you're still going to face a 14.5% increase. So it does feel a little bit skewed. And again, this is when you drill down into, well, what does it mean for me? I'm not interested in the averages. Then this is the sort of weird scenario you're going to face. So it's one of the things we advise at the end of this session is do take advice. You can already look on the VOA website to find out what your rateable value is going to be for next year. Apply the logic from here and speak to someone just to get your head around what's coming so you can plan for your business for the next few years. Scenario four is actually, this is in essence almost like Tom's pub. So I'll let him take you through this, but there's a lot of more rateable values that are increasing quite a bit. So whether it grows up from 40,000 to 48,000 or doubles to 80,000 because of transitional relief, which is kind of taking the pain out of massive increases, your rates bill is still going to go up by 15%. So again, it feels a bit bizarre that someone who's only getting a small increase in their rateable value or doubling, they're going to both face the same increase in rates. So again, weird situations, but that's what happens when you will kind of try and introduce mechanisms to reduce the buffer and the pain of making changes. Tom, is there anything you want to add on this?
I don't think there's much I can add without getting too technical. I think the next slide might be more illustrative.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. All right, so next slide is basically we want to take you on a slightly longer journey now. So assuming that you have a rateable value of 40,000, again, so the same as before. Again, it's occupied, it's retail, hospitality, leisure. Then, let's say in this case, your rateable value doubles to 80,000. So this is like we're going for a drink with Tom down his local pub. What's going to happen? So currently the rateable value, as I say, 40,000, it's going to go up to 80,000 from the 1st of April. Bear with me a sec. There we go. Let's click on this. So your current rates bill just under £12,000 because of the current multiplier of 49.9%, which Tom talked about. And these are your forthcoming bills for years 1, 2, and 3. So the 15% we already mentioned. So your next bill will be 15% higher. The year after, so again, the transitional relief is there. So it's basically the government saying, I'm going to hit you hard, but it's okay. I'm going to spread the pain over 3 years. So I'll hit you hard in year one, I'll hit you harder in year two, and then I'll hit you really hard in year three as well. So these are annual increases that are shown here, 15, 25, and 40%. But when you take the whole thing together, you're going to notice that over the next 3 years, your rates bill will double from 12,000 to, as I say, just over doubling. Tom, is there any way that people can find themselves with some sort of special relief or anything like that based on what's already been announced at the moment?
Based on what they've said, if they were to repeat the rules and repeat the multipliers and repeat the support they've put in place for retail properties, no, that's the path you're going down unless you can challenge your rateable value. That would be the only recourse here, which is a technical process in itself. But it's not straightforward, particularly for something like a pub as well.
Okay, cool. And that's definitely that's where kind of your world comes in. Probably get an initial assessment as to everyone's going to think that the rateable value is too high because it's going to reduce money if they can get that number down. But it is not easy to do, and you may not have the grounds to do that. But it is worth having a conversation with someone. But bear in mind, even if, say, you manage to get it down from 80 to 70, you're still going to feel quite a lot of pain.
It would be the exact same as those charges.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because of that whole transitional relief buffering,
Yeah,
buffering
yeah,
the
because
support.
without transitional relief, those bills would be much, much higher. So transitional relief is doing a huge favor there, but it's still a big increase. That's almost the best case scenario when you're seeing a large increase. You'd need to drop it quite significantly to, or the retail multiplier would need to be dropped so much lower for those charges not to be the path that you're going
Okay.
on.
Okay. And just as a bit of a backdrop, it's taken years for Labour and Tory who have constantly been saying, oh, we're going to reform rates, we're going to reform rates, and then they tinker around the edge. This is quite a few things they've introduced, these kind of lots of layers of multipliers now. So I honestly can't imagine there being much more changes coming up soon. Tom, do you agree?
No, I think it will more be tinkering with what they've built. The sort of system they've built now allows for tinkering year on year. So there might be some slight extensions or some more, but I think this will be it really, for at least the next 3 years.
Okay, fine, brilliant. Thank you for that. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And again, a little bit of unspinning what the big headlines are in when it comes to budgets. It is rare, but although everyone was saying online giants are going to have to pay more and contribute more to society, etc., and a lot of Amazon warehouses, for example, will be doing so, you can also find anomalies as well where we're going to find we found one situation and it wasn't hard to find this, so there's going to be more out there. Amazon's warehouse in Leeds, and this is publicly available information, by the way. We haven't hacked into Amazon's website or back end. There's a 7% increase in the RV to 7.7 million. And because their multiplier as a big business, weirdly, the multiplier has gone down for the big guns as well, by 6.7%. This Amazon warehouse is actually going to pay less in rates than it did in the current year. So it's like, what the hell? Okay, so again, it is an extreme case, but it's not isolated. So you kind of think, hold on, if they're supposed to be supporting smaller businesses and all this other stuff, it's not quite working out as things are normally presented. Okay, so here's some other slightly scary facts for you, but this is hopefully useful information. Tom's kind of covered this already, but if you have a rateable value where you would have got small business rates relief and probably been exempt completely for a rateable value of under 12,000, and your rateable value now goes above 15,000, on paper, the initial calculation is that you would end up with a £5,700 rate bill. And so the reason we wanted to mention this to you is it is all getting very technical. This is where Tom loves his stuff. He's the one that pointed out, actually, the government's been nice here. They haven't just slapped you with a £5,700 bill from the 1st of April. They've introduced something called Supporting Small Business Scheme, which means that your bill, which was previously, we're talking for many years, nil, you're now going to get one. It will start at £800, but it will keep being added onto by £800 year after year. Tom, anything else to add on that without getting too technical?
Yeah, without getting too technical, it's hard with supporting small business. So it's been around for a while, and it used to be staggered by 600, but they've made it 800. They've also made it far more complicated to work out. There's a lot more inner workings. This one is, in the nicest way, actually a simple calculation for supporting small business. My only suggestion would be is if you are currently in receipts of small business rates relief and seen a big rateable value increase, is to speak to someone, because it can get a little bit well, we've said technical enough times here, but I can't think of a better word really. But yes.
Okay, fine. So in short, don't try and do this at home by yourself. Okay, so how does the budget affect your empty rates option? So we've talked about that's everything that you wanted to know for your tenants if you're a landlord with an occupier. If you are an occupier yourself, the same principles apply as we've described. But as I said, there are going to be, normally there's 1 in 7 shops that are empty at any one point in time. Plus, there's probably going to be more coming through as a result of difficult trading. So we need to look at the empty rates option. So I'm going to whiz through this because in summary, nothing really changed. Everyone was expecting some dramatic changes, but it's all been deferred into a consultation that's now open again. So this is, I think, the 3rd consultation in 3 years. I'm not really sure what else they're going to learn, but it's there. It's open till Feb, so you can have your thoughts and comments on how to deal with empty rates and put that into the government to see what they change. So just there are various ways. I'm going to click through this in the conscious of time, and I know there's a lot of people want to ask for questions. So there's ways to avoid empty rates. Some are legit, some are not. Some are already ineffective and some kind of work in some occasions. So for example, on here, we've got one that's called box shifting. It doesn't work at all in Scotland. It's very difficult to do in Wales. And England got squeezed last year by Jeremy Hunt. And that still stands. And we're expecting all of those to get quashed a little bit more in due course. But at the moment, that's all been deferred, as I say. So there were expected changes for those ones, the introduction of a ZAR, of the Garda General Anti-Avoidance Regulations. So some GAR rules were introduced, but not all-encompassing at the moment as far as business rates is concerned. The idea was to free up the courts. And again, just keep those changes coming so these things don't get abused. There are other schemes For example, listed buildings is generally exempt from empty rates anyway. So there's a few here. Again, if you're interested in this, come back to myself. This is kind of my world, but obviously Tom, super technical Tom, can help you with all this stuff as well. Okay, so these were the expected changes that we were looking at on listed buildings, next in use, refurbishment costs, which again, Tom looks at quite a lot, and also pretending that you've got a church in a building when you haven't. All of these things have been deferred. There is, however, one long-standing, safe way to avoid empty rates. Actually, there's two. Firstly, make a deal with someone, commercial arrangement, even if it's just rent it from me for £1, but take the space off my hands, retail, do what you need to do, but you pick up all the costs. That is the best way to avoid empty rates, is to make sure it's not empty anymore. And the second best one is to work with the charity sector. So it's being used well on a flexible temporary arrangement basis. Why is this unchanged? It's a long-standing business rates break that's there to support the charity sector. It's got public sentiment, and it's consistent with other tax breaks from the government as well. For example, you get to write off the rent that you've foregone when you donate space, and you may even get out of SIL as well. So we've got architects who are coming to us asking, how does that work? And we kind of take them on that journey with us. And for example, saved a Bromley landlord £750,000 on his SIL, and it was signed off by the council without a problem as well. Right, so it's also worth knowing that the insurance industry likes buildings in use as opposed to not. It obviously delivers on your ESG and CSR goals as well, so that's at no extra cost. And even councils are doing this as well because they like to save money on their estates department, but they want to do it in an ethical and legitimate way, which supports their local community. Now, the reason we wanted to repeat all of that to you is because right now it's even more important than it has been to potentially look at working with the charity sector because of the unexpected changes from Rachel Reeves and that introduction of a special multiplier for the retail, hospitality, leisure industry. Because if your tenant is running such a shop, cafe, restaurant, bowling alley, and it closes down, not just are you going to lose on the rent, the rates bill will move to you. And because the occupier, the bowling alley operator, would have paid a lower multiplier than you, when it shifts to you and it moves to unoccupied status, that bill will go from them and it will go up by 11.6% because it's no longer occupied. So it's going to hurt even more. So it'd be even more useful to try and get someone in there that qualifies, charity that may be doing RHL type of use as well. It will save you even more money. And of course, all those benefits on the insurance front and everything as well. So as I say, we want to make sure we guys have a chance to answer any questions. So in summary, the transitional relief has masked the true costs. It's telling you about, okay, it's going to go up and we will have to share the pain of all the changes, even though the business rates income for the year for next year is supposed to be the same as this year. We're kind of struggling to see who's actually benefiting in a big way here. Tom, is there anything to add on this?
No, I think you just made the point I wanted to make, is that the headline was Amazon online giants are going to be paying more for retail properties to pay less. We showed one example, which is quite cherry picked, but it still shows that in some instances, the big giants are paying less. I think most will be paying more, but so most of the retail places. So the headline isn't true, but everyone's just paying more. And it is quite hard to see who the winner is out of this revaluation.
Okay, cool. Small businesses are being hit the hardest because although the pound amount may be smaller, for them it actually feels a lot bigger, especially if you've never had a bill before and you're suddenly going to get one for 800, and over the next 2 years after that it will triple from 800 to 2400 as well. It's going to hurt. So those feel as though, and again, spend wise, it's always talk about helping small businesses, can't necessarily see that as being the truth. Commercial voids are more likely, as I described, so there are going to be more fatalities as a result of underlying costs and changing in buying habits continuing, and that is going to be more voids, and so probably potentially more redevelopments and conversions, and also buildings standing empty for longer before the next tenant comes along. And as I say, the charity-led option is become more critical because it's probably the one that's going to be safe after the consultation closes in February. Hence, be prepared for your rates bills, look at them carefully, but be prepared for February because maybe there'll be some changes that are announced after that consultation closes. which will take effect on the 1st of April. It's pretty much how Jeremy Hunt and the crew did it back then in the last Tory budget. There was a consultation, it closed, and within days, changes were made, and they weren't even part of the budget speech. It was just done on the 1st of April. And lastly, and this is probably the most important piece of advice that we can give you, is be prepared. So you can check your RVs online right now. And that plus knowing and understanding about the multiplier will give you a head start as to what to expect. Check your bill when it arrives. And please do, as I say, there was some scary messages earlier on about how much it's going to go up by. And you may think, oh, actually, it shouldn't go up much because my RV didn't move much. Or I'm a small business. I'm scared it's going to go to 5,700. Please do get advice. Tom and that crew and that sector are there to help out. He's got some fancy code that he's built probably over the weekend as well, knowing Tom, just for a bit of fun. So he can use that and that will help you out. Okay, so Mark, I'm going to let you take control again. Will you share with us some questions that you may have been collecting whilst we've been doing this?
Sure. We've just seen one come through from Aran, which says, can you cover the occupied or unoccupied point further? If I'm a landlord and a tenant paying rates, vacates, what am I liable for? Say the RV is £100,000. Would it not just be £100,000 times 0.43, or is it higher?
It would be higher. To answer that. It would be times 0.48. But while your tenant would have paid the 0.43 as they are occupying it as a retail property, they get the 5p off the multiplier. But as it's empty and not in retail usage, you'd pay 0.48. So in essence, 5 grand more in that scenario.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask you a question off the back of this, Tom, because I was thinking about this. So if, for example, Aaron approaches the charity sector through ASTOP, or even if he finds a tenant and they just say, I just want it for storage, I'm not going to open this as a retail shop again, but I will pay, I don't know, a small amount towards the insurance or service charge or something, but not pay rent. Will that qualify for Aaron to say, oh, can I now have the 43.2%? Or is he still
So
going to have to pay the high rate?
the storage definitely wouldn't, as it needs to be used for a retail purpose. It needs to be open to visitors. So
Right.
storage wouldn't. A charity might be if it's a because I know, for example, you've worked with the Get Free books, which do open up to visitors. They would be eligible for the retail discount, so they would be cheaper for, as an example of one charity that would.
Cool. Of course. And then they would obviously probably get the 80% relief
Of
on top
course,
of
yeah,
that as
they
well.
would get the
Okay.
80% as well. Yeah, they would be paying a lot less.
Okay, cool. So Aaron, hopefully that answers your question. And that, working with the charities, they're on temporary rolling contracts, so 1 month's notice, so you can carry on doing your viewings and all that sort of stuff as well. And then move them on when you get a better, more lucrative option. It's normal for them. They're kind of used to that. Okay, any others, Mark?
Nothing else. So I think that means that you guys did a really good job explaining everything and no one has any questions. Either that or you've just confused everyone and they can benefit from a one-to-one with Tom and or Shaylesh to discuss options.
Yeah, yeah. If you're feeling
Anything more?
confused, go to Tom. If you're not confused, come to me.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Listen, thank you everyone for your time. Conscious of time. If you want to stay on and ask questions as well, we will stay on for a few more minutes, not a problem. And these are our contact details. So you've got email, phone number, some web pages down the bottom. So please feel free to take a screenshot, and hopefully you found that useful and it took away some of the magic and the mystery of what Rachel Reeves said and what that actually means for you as well. Thank you. As I say, Tom and I are going to hold on for a little bit in case some other questions pop up in the chat. Tom, you're welcome to share a closing message if you have one.
All I say is, if you feel quite shy about saying what your rateable value is, or you want to know a specific example, if you have a property and you want to know what exactly you'll be paying next year, drop me an email. I'm happy to go through that. I think we have another question.
Oh, cool. One more. If a landlord has a shopping center with 20 vacant units, I saw my NOI improve as the rates multiplier was going down. Sorry, I'm not au fait with NOI. Do you know what that is, Tom?
No. I'm
Or maybe
afraid
it
I
was
don't.
ROI. Maybe it was a typo. Oh, net operating income. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Saw my net operating income improve as the rates multiplier was going down. I assume that RV has stayed the same. Have I calculated this right?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying there. So if you have 20 vacant units, if they weren't already occupied, then they wouldn't have been getting the 40% discount, and they're the ones that have been really hardly hit. So if they were already vacant, you were already paying the rates you were paying. So unless the rateable value has jumped up, the rateable value jumping up would go in line with transitional relief. Um, but again, you could probably look at lowering if you have 20 empty units, look at lowering that further. We have another question there from, hopefully I've answered that, Aaron. My suggestion there would be to speak to Shaylesh if you have 20 vacant units, because I'm sure he can get that even lower, um, not just making it stay the same. Rosalind has asked about transitional leaf. Does that mean the rates payable can only increase by a certain percentage per year? Um, in essence, yes. So transitional relief has existed for a while. It usually comes in with every new rating list and just kind of staggers up how much stuff can increase by. The one real change they've done this year is they've made it even more technical. Um, the exact amount that your rates can increase by is determined by your rateable value. So the example we gave earlier is for something that with a £40,000 rateable value that falls within the mid tier. So that's 20,000 to 100,000, or 28,000 to 100,000 if you're in London. In essence, in the first year, your bill can increase by 15%, then the next year, 25%, and then 40%, just up until it reaches the point where you'd be paying what you'd be paying under your new rateable value. The idea is just to stagger it. And it does work, but the jumps are quite extreme. So it's just our feeling is that it's not exactly transparent to say that retail properties will be saying paying less. An additional up to 20, or it could be up to 25% if it's going to be lower, but it will be 25%. So in the scenario, Shailesh, are you able to go back to the slide with the
Yes.
40,000 to 80,000? It might be easier to show with the numbers.
Yeah. Bear with me a sec. I'm going to click as fast as I can. Is it this one or the one before that?
It's this one. That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. So, as you can see there, Rosalind, in the first year, it's jumped by 15%, and that's hitting the cap. That's because if there was no transitional relief, the new charge in 26-27 would be, in essence, 80,000 times the retail multiplier, which is the 0.43. My maths isn't quite good enough to do it off the top of my head, but that's about 32,000-ish. Um, so it's quite substantial, the 15%. It then goes up to 25% on that next year. It's all trying to reach back to that £32,000 figure. If you never hit that 32,000 figure, then you will be just hit doing the 15, 25, 40. But say, for example, your charge increased from 40,000 to 50,000. Your charge with the retail multiplier will actually be 50 times 0.38. Apologies, I know I'm going very technical, Tom, here. So it would be 19,100. So your charge for that in that example in 26-27 would be the 13,772. In 27-28, it would still be that full 25% increase up to 17%. But then in 28-29, your charge would be 19,000 rather than 24,100 based on the current retail multipliers. I hope that makes sense. If it didn't, please do drop me an email. So an additional 10%, no. So it's actually 25% on top of that 13. So it goes
Oh dear.
11,976 plus 15%, and then it's the 13,772 plus 25%.
Yeah,
If
so
you
Rosalind, I'm going to jump in. Like, Rosalind, I know actually. So Rosalind, I'll happily introduce you to Tom on mobile numbers and stuff if you wish as well. But yeah, the middle row was the increase from the previous year. So it's 15% and then 25% and then 40%. And hence down the bottom, we wanted to really spell it out that it is going to double over the 3 years. So I appreciate it's not the message you probably wanted to hear, but hopefully it does help you get your head around it.
if you
But
have
in short, speak to Tom.
if you have a specific property that you have in mind, I can work out what the charge will be for you. Just yeah, ask Shaylish to put us in touch.
Excellent stuff. And we will try and cover those off during the Q&A at the end of this session. So